Call me crazy. Go ahead. Call me crazy. I really don't care. And I'm going to be called an idiot more than I already am. But this is something that I've been sitting on for a long, long time. I have not heard many people agree with this. I have not heard many people talk about this. But I don't think Josh Rosen is a bust. I don't think Josh Rosen is a bust. Now, with that being said, has his career been successful so far? No. Absolutely not. But what I'm going to do today is, if you're willing to listen, I would like to explain to you why I think Josh Rosen can still be a good NFL quarterback. So, Josh Rosen was in what was perceived to be a stacked quarterback draft class. Now, of course, if you haven't seen already, my team is the Cleveland Browns. We took Baker Mayfield number 1 overall in that draft. And despite his bad season this past year, I think Baker's going to live up to that. I don't think you can deny the success he had in his rookie season. And despite the bad season last year, I think there's some good you can take from that with the moves made to surround him with help, coaching-wise, offensive line, etc. I think Baker will live up to that number 1 overall pick. Now, the second quarterback taken, Sam Darnold. I personally never loved Sam Darnold. I thought he was a safe, boring pick. I think he would have been, I thought he was going to be an average to at least solid quarterback. I don't think he was going to be a complete and utter bust. Like, I never thought he was going to be awful. But seemed like a boring pick. The third quarterback taken, Josh Allen. I did not like Josh Allen at all when it was draft time. He has proved me wrong greatly. Now, I still have a lot of concerns with his accuracy. He's a big arm quarterback who can throw it a mile, but I still question his accuracy a lot. Like, there's some throws where it's like, he's kind of wide open there, bud, and he's missing him by 10 yards. And in the NFL, that's a problem. Like, if you're a starting NFL quarterback, you got to be able to make some of those wide open throws. So I have a lot of concerns with Josh Allen. But as far as his NFL career, he's been, I'd say, pretty good to great so far. The next quarterback taken was Josh Rosen. Now, Josh Rosen, to me, I had as the second best quarterback in the class. I had Baker Mayfield number 1, Josh Rosen number 2, Sam Darnold 3, Josh Allen 4, Lamar Jackson 5. And, by the way, when I talk about this draft class, Lamar's kind of excluded because he was picked late in the first round, last pick in the first round to the Ravens. So I'm really talking about the top of the class. And that doesn't mean he's not at the top. Don't get me wrong. Absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. But when I'm talking about that draft, the top picks of that draft. And in hindsight, now that we've seen 2-3 years of their each respected careers, what's going on? So, Sam Darnold Baker Mayfield went to the Browns. The Browns completely rebuilt, completely just tore everything apart and rebuilt from the bottom up, and now has surrounded Baker with, after this offseason, a good line, great receiving core, great running backs, great tight ends, and coaching that fits his skill set. They're building around Baker. The New York Jets are starting to rebuild their offensive line. Haven't done much in the receiving core, but they have brought in a few draft picks and free agency. Josh Allen, Stephon Diggs, starting to rebuild the offensive line, coach that believes in them. That's their guy. The Arizona Cardinals drafted Josh Rosen to, I believe, was the worst offensive line in the NFL at the time. Not a lot of receiving weapons. A old running back, David Johnson, who was dealing with a lot of injuries. Larry Fitzgerald, who, yes, is a phenomenal receiver, but I think we can all understand he's coming to the end, and he's not going to be where a star receiver would. So, Josh Rosen was thrown into a bad position with a first-year coach who then went on to be the defensive coordinator in Cleveland after he got fired. But the Cardinals never fully believed in Josh Rosen. And everybody will point to the numbers, the game film. I think with Josh Rosen, one thing you got to understand is he's not the modern typical quarterback. The new modern quarterback is somebody who is mobile, who has a rocket for an arm. So, meaning, like Sam Darnold, he's not great, but he's mobile. He can move outside the pocket, throw on the run. Baker Mayfield, he's not great, but he's mobile. He can move. He can throw outside the pocket. You look at Josh Allen. He is mobile. Shocker. I never seen that one coming. He's very mobile. He was at the top of the league with rushing quarterbacks behind Lamar Jackson. And he can throw it a mile. So when you're looking at that draft class, Josh Rosen is really the only one who's a strictly sit in the pocket, kind of quarterback. Like, he can move somewhat, but you don't want him to move. And he got drafted in a position where I don't think they believed in him. I think they thought he was the best player on the board quarterback-wise, and they needed to get a quarterback. They didn't rebuild the offensive line. They didn't help him in the receiving game, tight ends, etc. And the Cardinals failed. They were terrible. There's nothing else you can say. It was terrible. So what happens then? The Arizona Cardinals have the number 1 overall pick, and they select Kyler Murray. Now, I love Kyler Murray. Is Kyler Murray better than Josh Rosen? Yes, of course. Not even close. But they trade Josh Rosen to Miami. What does Miami do? Miami trades away a lot of their young talent. Minkah Fitzpatrick, Kenny Stills. You see them get rid of basically everything that would be valuable to a quarterback like a Josh Rosen. And I know Minkah Fitzpatrick plays defense. They got rid of their offensive lineman. I can't remember who he is. Laramie Tunsil. They trade Laramie Tunsil. So what do they leave him with? Devontae Parker, who's a great receiver. Besides that, not much. So they barely play Josh Rosen, and Fitzmagic gets the starting job. And since then, it's kind of been, sit the bench. Not heard much from him, not seen much from him. And a lot of people look at his career so far and mark him down as a bust. Josh Rosen, I think, is a very unlucky man. Because when you go back and you look at his USC days, or not USC, gosh, I'm getting Darnold and Rosen mixed up. UCLA. When you go back and you look at Josh Rosen at UCLA, you could definitely tell he had arm talent. He was accurate. He had a good arm as far as distance. And like I said earlier, he was a sit in the pocket, very accurate, get the ball out kind of guy. Since then, now that he's been in the NFL, he's been on teams with bad receivers, bad offensive lines, organizations that don't believe in him. And I think a lot of people don't think that he's capable of being a successful NFL quarterback. And I know this may sound, very monotone and very just, But this is something that kind of irritates me because I think you see this with a lot of guys who I think have a lot of potential who don't get any chances. And I don't mean, he's had the starting job both times. But in both cases, he's not been given long enough. And he's never been supported. Both from organization, teammates. Well, maybe not teammates, but I think if you got Josh Rosen next year to, let's say Cam Newton is only in New England for a year. Let's say that Cam Newton has a great season, hits the free agency market, and makes bank. The New England Patriots aren't going to be in a position likely to draft a quarterback, or at least a Trevor Lawrence, a Justin Fields, one of those kind of top guys. What if Bill Belichick makes a trade for Josh Rosen? A guy who would fit their system perfectly. Sit back, drop back, quick, get the ball out. Somewhat similar to a Tom Brady. Now, I'm not saying he is Tom Brady by any means, but I'm saying style-wise, Josh Rosen is very much similar for the system. So I think if you got him in a place like New England where he could get coached up, and I like Brian Flores, but that's a long story. But I think if you put him in a place like New England or you put him in a place like Minnesota, Kirk Cousins' deal is coming up, I believe. His contract's coming to an end. If they decide that they don't want to keep Kirk Cousins, which I think they will, but it also depends on what they're going to give up, as far as salary-wise. So I think if you got him on a team like that, where the system would put you in a good position, where you're not told to throw all the time, you balance that run game, play action, I think he can have success. I do. I think if you got him, let's say Jameis Winston isn't the guy long term with the Saints, and they want to bring in a guy like Josh Rosen, if Breeze wants another year, I think there's many places that Josh Rosen can go and still have success. I hate to say this, but the Pittsburgh Steelers, I think, would be a spot where they should look. Big Ben is coming to the end of his career. I think he's, no hate to him. He's a Hall of Famer, great guy. Well, I don't know about that, but a great player, and they don't have a backup. Mason Rudolph sucks. Devlin Duck Hodges had a few good games, but as far as your long-term starter, I think the Steelers would be a great place. Bring in Josh Rosen, have him sit behind, learn. The Steelers got a great offensive line, great young receiving core, a head coach who is going to have full support of his quarterback. Why not? I really don't think that Josh Rosen is a bust. I think Josh Rosen has been on two bad teams that don't believe in him, don't support him, and aren't willing to give him a chance. And this is why I think if somebody steals Josh Rosen, puts him in a good position, and at least tries it out. If it doesn't work and I'm wrong, so be it. But starting quarterbacks are not a dime a dozen, okay? This season, or this offseason, is a little bit different. You've seen some guys who have a lot of potential get signed cheap. Your Cam Newtons, your Jameis Winston, Marcus Mariota, guys like that who had high expectations, signed for less. I think Josh Rosen, put him in the right position, I think he can have success. Now, what is the level of that success? I don't know, because I don't know if he's completely ruined yet or not. I'd have to see. His game film is terrible. His stats are terrible. His decision-making is terrible. I know I just lagged a little bit. I don't know what's going on now. But I just don't think you should give up on him. And I really kind of feel bad because it's like there's certain players like your Leonard Fournettes who I think are good players who get drafted to horrible teams, who don't know what they're doing and don't believe in you and just kind of want to tank and rebuild, and it's a train wreck. So Josh Rosen, I think, can still be a successful quarterback. Like I said, I don't know to what level, but doesn't hurt to bring him in and figure it out. So these guys like the Jameis Winstons of the world, Marcus Mariotas, they're being brought into the building to see what they have. Okay, it's not like these guys have never had success. And you look at, Jameis Winston's a little bit different. Marcus Mariota's a tad bit different. But Josh Rosen has not been successful at the NFL level. I don't think that's all on him. So if I was an NFL franchise, I would 100% bring him in. Put him behind a good offensive line, some solid receivers, a system that helps him, and see what you got. Why not? Why not? There's definitely worse quarterbacks as backups right now. So I know that might be a little bit boring, but this is something that really frustrates me because it's like nobody's talking about this. Everybody just wants to write it off as a bust. Like, I seriously think, Sam Darnold has been on a horrible team, but I really don't know how good he is. Like, I think he's very overrated. I don't know. But they also haven't helped him at all either. So it's like, these guys deserve fair evaluations of them. And you can't get that until you have a front office that believes in them. So, let me know your thoughts. Do you think a team should bring Rosen in just to figure it out? Just to see if there's any spark to start a fire there? Because I truly think there is. Let me know your thoughts. If you're watching to the end, thank you for watching. You are a good person. God bless you. Have a great day. Have a good night. Whatever. It's nighttime.